First, it was Tyler Atinson. We didn't know there would be a second yesterday when Tyler Atinson picked Texas. Kind of take us behind the scenes of that monumental decision of the number one linebacker in America committing to the Longhorns.
Well, it started in the spring, Josh. They got him on campus to Austin the first time. They kind of set the tone for Texas, trying to be a contender and a true player in the race for Tyler Atinson. And then things went really well, there. Then he went into training mode, obviously in Austin with guys like Texas linebacker Anthony Hill, former Texas linebacker edge Derek Johnson, stayed around that program and people connected to that program for weeks, late May, early mid-June. Then they knocked out Ohio State for that last official visit on the weekend of June 20th. That really laid the groundwork for what turned into a Texas versus Georgia battle over the last 3 to 4 weeks in this recruitment. And, different schools were viewed as Georgia's biggest competition in this race. Texas became that, and they ended up surpassing Georgia to win this recruiting battle for the number one linebacker in the country. And Johnny Nansen, Steve Sarkisian, that whole staff played a role. Obviously, NIL, the opportunities in Austin, Texas, played a role in this decision too, but a huge monumental win, I think, for Texas over Georgia for Tyler Atinson.
Yeah, a lot of people, me, compare this to the Justice Terry recruitment, but I think that Tyler Atinson picking Texas was maybe a bigger surprise than Justice Terry. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. On my end, maybe I heard more buzz for what I do about Texas being a true contender. Maybe that the few days leading up to this decision with Tyler Atinson, especially once we knew that commitment date was locked in. Now, we only had 24 hours, advance notice on that. But once we started doing some digging, once we got that alert, things started quickly pointing towards Texas there. With Justice Terry, look, I had my suspicions maybe about 2 to 3 days prior to that announcement. Things weren't going really well for Georgia in that race, but I still think for me personally, Justice Terry not going to Georgia was a bigger surprise for me in the end.
All right. Well, who could be next on this Texas hit list? Who's the next recruit they could steal from Georgia?
From Georgia, well, they got James Johnson. So they took that one, after Tyler Atinson, from Georgia, afterwards that night. As far as, next for Texas, I think a lot of eyes are on Derek Cooper. Obviously, the running back from down in South Florida. That's a Georgia, Miami, Texas battle for one of the top running backs in the country. And look, the surprising thing about Texas here, if it is surprising, is he hasn't even taken an official visit to Texas, but they are the hot name connected to Derek Cooper just days out. He'll announce on the 20th of July this weekend his decision. And a lot of people thought, including myself, that Miami set the pace in this race, a lot like Georgia set the pace for Tyler Atinson. But now late, as the decision date is closing in, Texas is trending. There's some optimism in Athens. Maybe he could pick Georgia, but the buzz for me favors Texas over Miami and Georgia for Derek Cooper.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a big surprise if Cooper is a Horn when he announces on Saturday. Now, that takes us to James J.J. Johnson, the number one defensive lineman in the state of Florida, the number 10 ranked player in America. If you saw the Tyler Atinson pick go into Texas, I don't think anybody saw James Johnson flipping from Georgia to Texas on a random Tuesday in July. What was going on behind the scenes here with James J.J. Johnson?
I mean, do you think it was a coincidence that Steve Sarkisian and Kirby Smart were at SEC Media Days together on Tuesday? Tyler Atinson, while Sark is there, Kirby's there, commits to Texas. As the things are wrapping up that day in Atlanta, James Johnson flips from Georgia to Texas. Coincidence? I don't know. I think maybe a statement, by Texas, kind of a planned scenario there for them, and two huge wins. With James Johnson, when he committed to Georgia, he told me straight up, Texas was number 2, a very close number 2. Now, I had been hearing he was going to take some visits in the fall, specifically to Miami and Texas, and that things maybe weren't going to happen, if anything did happen, until the season. So, look, things change, very quickly here. I got a heads up. Earlier that day, it could happen. Steve Wiltfong heard some buzz about that potentially happening as well. We worked together on that. We got the flip from James Johnson, and another huge win and a big loss, for Georgia. I think, with recruiting now, you have to prepare for every kind of scenario, but to lose a guy like Tyler Atkinson in your home state and then a big commitment like James Johnson in the same day are two big blows for Georgia, two big wins for Texas.
So any other names you're tracking when it comes to Texas recruiting right now?
Yeah, I think after Derek Cooper, you have to look at Jake Krull, who's also at IMG Academy, another Florida kid,
Yep.
an edge rush guy, has got, his recruitment down to Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Texas. Right now, it doesn't seem to be like he's nearing a decision. He's talking about taking game trips in the fall. But look, we've seen other things change very quickly. There has been a little bit of talk about him moving some things up, but I think he's the hot name to watch now after Derek Cooper. Also a kid I'm looking at is Devon Benjamin. He'll announce on August 2nd. We think Oregon is the team to beat there for the elite cornerback, out of California. Texas got an OV. They're in the mix. Michigan's trying to compete as well. Texas could be Oregon's biggest competition for Benjamin. So I think Derek Cooper, Jake Krull, and then Devon Benjamin are three guys to watch for Texas.
All right. Hide your recruits. The Horns are coming. Texas fans, talk to Chad and I. How are you feeling about Derek Cooper? Another huge recruitment coming to an end on Saturday. Where do you think he's going? Let us know.